All right, you guys, we are just days away. We're days away at this point from a WNBA strike or lockout, okay? January 9th is fastly approaching. It seems to be no movement. Every time we hear something, it's terrible stuff we're hearing. We're hearing that we're no more close to a deal than we were in October or at the All-Star break. I mean, it is
days away. That's where we are right now. January 9th is the deadline, and every report coming out says the same thing. No progress. The WNBA and its players' union are no closer to a deal than they were back in October. Back at the All-Star break, we're staring down a lockout that could wipe out the entire 2025 season, which means no Caitlin Clark, no Angel Reese, no WNBA basketball. And the most frustrating part, only one player seems willing to talk about compromise.
This girl is stuck in a nasty, bad spot. She's the only player we've heard come out and talk about how there needs to be compromise. She's the only player that came out and said, hey, we need to have a season this year in the WNBA. She's the only person that came out and said, hey, playing in the games is how you make the money. It's what the fans want. It's what the people want. It's what the media wants. We need to get the people what they want. She's the only player.
There it is. Caitlin Clark is stuck in limbo, caught between a union demanding maximum revenue and a league that's still figuring out how to turn viral moments into sustainable profit. She's the only player who publicly said there needs to be compromise on both sides. She's the only one who said playing the games is what fans actually want. Every other voice we're hearing from the players' side, it's about squeezing every possible dollar out of the WNBA based on the numbers Caitlin brought in. Here's what makes that particularly rich. These are the same players and their supporters who spent all of 2024 calling Caitlin's fans racist. Didn't matter if you were black, white, Mexican, Asian, whatever. If you showed up for Caitlin Clark, you got labeled. The message was clear. We don't want you here. But now they want to capitalize on the revenue those same fans generated. That's not just ironic. That's bad business wrapped in hypocrisy.
Pivotal moment to collect the bargaining agreement. CBA deadline nears and star Caitlin Clark remains outspoken amid stalled negotiations that could shape the future of the league. The 2020 CBA between WNBA and WNBPA increased salaries and benefits and was originally set to last until 2027. However, just 4 years later, players invoked the opt-out clause on October 21st, 2024, citing the league's explosive growth and outdated structure, citing Caitlin Clark arriving to the league and bringing in all these fans and this money. That's what it is. Okay, negotiations continue.
Let's break down what actually happened here. The current CBA was signed in 2020 and was supposed to last until 2027. It increased salaries and benefits significantly at the time. But 4 years later, on October 21st, 2024, the players invoked the opt-out clause. Their reasoning? The league's explosive growth and the outdated structure of the deal. Translation: Caitlin Clark arrived, brought millions of new fans and massive TV ratings. And suddenly, the 2020 agreement looked insufficient. That's fair on the surface. Growth should mean better compensation. But negotiations have been happening behind closed doors for months, and we keep hearing the same thing: minimal progress. Tensions finally boiled over publicly during the 2025 All-Star Day, where players made it clear they were frustrated with the league's reluctance to meet their demands.
For the first time since December 2024, attendance was historic, with players like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese present despite not being union reps. Yet after a 2-hour session, many left feeling ignored, while WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert insisted a deal would be finalized on time. Players amplified their protests wearing shirts during pregame warmups reading, "Pay us what you owe us." Satu Sabali described the league's initial proposal as a slap in the face, echoing the sentiment of Sophie.
July 17th, 2024. First meeting between the WNBA and the Players Association since December. Attendance was notable because Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese showed up even though neither of them are union representatives. 2-hour session. And when it ended, players walked out feeling ignored. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert insisted publicly that a deal would get done on time. The players responded by wearing shirts during pre-game warm-ups that read, "Pay us what you owe us." Satu Sabali called the league's initial proposal a slap in the face. Sophie Cunningham and Sydney Coulson echoed that sentiment. WNBA Players Association President Nenika Ogwumike backed them up. The message was unified. This isn't enough. The league responded by increasing the Supermax salary to $850,000 and raising the veteran minimum to $300,000 in early October. But the primary sticking point remained untouched: revenue sharing. That's what this entire negotiation hinges on.
Compromise and give. We've seen them raise the money. We've seen them, to our knowledge, give more of the revenue sharing, give more of this, give more of that. We haven't really seen what the players have been willing to compromise on, which is what Caitlin Clark ultimately said needed to happen on both sides. We've seen it from one side. We are yet to see it from the player side. Now, maybe they have behind the scenes and that information is not public.
This is the critical point. We've seen the league side make moves. They raised the Supermax. They increased minimums. Reports in early December indicated maximum salaries could hit $1 million, with revenue sharing projections potentially pushing top earners above $1.2 million. More recent reports put that number at $1.3 million. So the league has compromised. They've given ground. They've increased their offers multiple times. But here's what we haven't seen: any public indication of what the players are willing to compromise on. Caitlin Clark said it herself at Team USA camp. She called this the biggest moment the WNBA has ever seen and said players need to fight for everything they deserve. But then she added something crucial. That's what our fans crave: the product on the floor. That's what the fans want to show up for. It's business and it's negotiation. There has to be compromise on both sides. Compromise on both sides. We've seen it from one side. Where's the other half of that equation?
But I believe that it would be public because they've made everything else about this situation public. They've run to social media and Instagram to take shots at Kathy Engelberg, at Adam Silver, at the owners, all of this stuff, to the point where the WNBA basically had to come out and call the WNBPA liars in front of all the people and say that they're lying about the state of the negotiations, and let it be known that, hey, we are negotiating and offering things in good faith. You guys are lying about the state of which.
Some of what the players are demanding makes sense. Better salaries? Absolutely. More revenue sharing? Fair conversation. But some of these demands are disconnected from financial reality. They want the league to continue paying for housing and rental cars while simultaneously demanding higher salaries. They're pushing for payments to retired players like Cheryl Swoops and Lisa Leslie. Hold on. The league hasn't consistently turned a profit yet. The WNBA has been subsidized by the NBA for its entire existence, and now players want current revenue to fund retirement packages for people who aren't even in the league anymore. That's not how business works when you're still trying to establish profitability. The players have made everything about these negotiations public. They've gone to social media repeatedly. They've taken shots at Kathy Engelbert, at Adam Silver, at team owner. It got so public that the WNBA had to release a statement essentially calling the Players Association liars about the state of negotiations. The league said publicly, "We are negotiating in good faith. We are making offers, and you are misrepresenting where we stand."
It says, speaking at Team USA camp, Caitlin Clark emphasized the stakes, the biggest moment the WNBA has ever seen, fight for everything we deserve, adding, "That's what our fans crave, the product on the floor." She was quoted as saying, "That's what the fans want to show up for. So it's business and it's negotiation. There has to be compromise on both sides." Caitlin Clark, pardon me. Caitlin Clark is the only person, get my camera in focus. Caitlin Clark is the only person we've heard talk about some sort of compromise to a degree. And here it says, WNBPA Vice President Kelsey Plum called the process a little bit disheartening, noting frustration with how far apart the sides remain. And that's my thing. That's why I believe that there is going to be a lockout at this point, because every time we hear from the players, they say how far apart they are. And we've been hearing that for months after months after months. We're two extensions in now. And
WNBA Vice President Kelsey Plum called the process a little bit disheartening and expressed frustration with how far apart the two sides remain. And that's been the consistent message for months. Every time we hear from players, they emphasize the distance between the two positions. We heard it in October. We heard it after the deadline got extended in December. We heard it again when the deadline got extended to January 9th. And we're still hearing it now. That's why a lockout feels inevitable at this point. When both sides keep saying they're far apart after months of negotiations and 2 deadline extensions, that's not the language of people close to a deal. That's the language of a stalemate heading toward a work stoppage. Then the owners stepped in with the reality check. They came out and said plainly, "We cannot agree to what you're asking, because we would lose $700 million. We are not in the business of losing that kind of money." These are NBA owners who run profitable franchises in the men's league. They understand sports business, and they're telling you the math doesn't work.
Days away. Get down in the comments. Let me know what you think is going to happen.
So here's where this leaves us. January 9th is days away. The WNBA and the Players Association face 3 options. Accept the opposing side's proposal, continue negotiations past the deadline, or proceed with a strike or lockout. Revenue sharing, player compensation, and league sustainability remain at the heart of a dispute that could define professional women's basketball for the next decade. Let's be clear about what's at stake here. This isn't just about money. This is about whether the WNBA can capitalize on the momentum Caitlin Clark created in 20. She brought 3.2 million viewers to games, she sold out arenas, she made WNBA highlights go viral on social media. She created mainstream interest in women's basketball that didn't exist at this level before. And now, 1 year later, we might not have a season because the two sides can't agree on hand-to-split revenue that wouldn't exist without her. Think about the position this puts Caitlin in specifically. She's the one who brought the fans. She's the one who generated the ratings. She's the one who made the WNBA relevant in mainstream sports conversation. And she's the only player publicly talking about compromise, while everyone else digs in. She's watching players who resented her popularity and called her fans racist now demand money based on the popularity she created. She's watching a union that doesn't seem to represent her interests hold her career hostage over demands she apparently doesn't fully support. The irony is suffocating. The WNBA finally got what it always wanted: mainstream attention, sold-out arenas, legitimate TV ratings, cultural relevance. And the response was to immediately try to squeeze maximum dollars out of that moment, instead of building on it sustainably. Instead of saying, "Let's lock in this growth, establish consistent profitability, and then negotiate from a position of strength," the players opted out of their deal 4 years early and demanded immediate maximum compensation. Here's what makes that particularly short-sighted. The 2020 CBA was negotiated when the WNBA was averaging under 400,000 viewers per game, when most arenas were half empty, when the league was barely a footnote in sports media coverage. The players got significant raises in that deal, and it was supposed to run, but 1 Caitlin Clark season later, they wanted out. They saw the spike in attention and assumed it was permanent. They assumed those fans would stick around no matter what. They assumed the revenue would keep flowing regardless of whether there were actual games to watch. That assumption might be about to get tested, because if there's a lockout, those casual fans Caitlin brought in, they're not WNBA fans. They're Caitlin Clark fans. And if she's not playing, they're not watching. They're not buying tickets. They're not streaming games. They're not engaging with WNBA content on social media. The revenue disappears. And when negotiations eventually resume, the league's bargaining position gets stronger. Because the numbers prove what everyone suspected. The growth was about 1 player, not the league. The Players Association had leverage in October. They had momentum, ratings, sold-out arenas, and cultural relevance. They could have negotiated a strong deal from that position. But by dragging this out, by going public with attacks on the league, by refusing to show any willingness to compromise, they're watching that leverage evaporate. Every day without a deal is a day fans lose interest. Every week that passes is a week casual viewers forget the WNBA exists. Every month of a lockout is a month Caitlin Clark plays overseas, or in unrivaled while the WNBA becomes irrelevant again. And here's the thing about leverage in sports negotiations. It's perishable. The players had maximum leverage immediately after the 2024 season, when Caitlin's impact was undeniable and fresh in everyone's mind. They could have struck a deal in November that gave them significant raises, better revenue sharing, and improved working conditions while the momentum was hot. Instead, they held out for everything. They demanded maximum compensation, full revenue sharing, continued housing and travel benefits, and retirement funding for former players. They wanted it all immediately. The league looked at those demands, looked at their actual financial statements, and said no. We'll give you substantial raises, we'll increase revenue sharing, we'll improve the supermax to 1, but we can't give you everything you're asking for, because the math results in $700 million in losses. That's not negotiating. That's stating financial reality. So now we're days from a lockout, and the question becomes, who blinks first? The owners have profitable NBA franchises. They can absorb a year without WNBA basketball. It hurts, but it doesn't break them. The players, they can't absorb a year without paychecks. Even at reduced overseas salaries, missing a WNBA season means missing income, missing exposure, missing the opportunity to build on and for players like Caitlin Clark, who have endorsement deals tied to WNBA performance, a lockout means missing contractual obligations and potentially losing sponsors. The Players Association is betting the league will blink because they can't afford to lose Caitlin Clark's drawing power for a full season. The league is betting the players will blink because they can't afford to lose a year of income and relevance. And Caitlin Clark is stuck in the middle, publicly advocating for compromise while everyone around her refuses to budge. This is what happens when a league experiences sudden explosive growth without the infrastructure to handle it. The WNBA wasn't built for mainstream success. It was built to survive as a niche product subsidized by the NBA. Then Caitlin showed up and broke that model. She brought millions of fans who didn't care about the WNBA's history, or struggles or financial realities. They just wanted to watch her play. And instead of capitalizing on that moment by ensuring those fans had a product to consume, both sides are now willing to risk losing them entirely over dollars that might not even exist if there's no season. January 9th is the deadline. Based on everything we're hearing, there's no deal coming. The two sides remain far apart. Neither is showing willingness to compromise publicly. The owners have drawn a line at 7. The players have drawn a line at maximum revenue sharing and compensation. Those lines don't intersect, which means we're headed for a lockout, which means no WNBA basketball in 2025, which means Caitlin Clark's second season gets canceled, which means all that momentum from 2024 evaporates, which means we're back to the WNBA being a niche product that most sports fans ignore. The saddest part, this was entirely avoidable. Both sides had opportunities to compromise. Both sides had chances to lock in significant gains while maintaining the momentum. Instead, they chose maximum demands over sustainable growth. They chose short-term dollars over long-term relevance. They chose ego over pragmatism. And now the league that finally got mainstream attention is about to disappear from mainstream consciousness because nobody could agree on how to split revenue that only exists because of one player who's publicly begging both sides to compromise. So what happens next? My prediction, we get a lockout on January 9th. Negotiations continue for another month, with no games scheduled. Caitlin commits fully to unrivaled and potentially overseas opportunities. Casual fans forget the WNBA exists. By March, the Players Association starts feeling financial pressure as members miss paychecks. By April, they accept a deal that's worse than what was offered in December. The 2025 season starts in June, with half the schedule cut. Attendance is down because casual fans moved on. Ratings drop because the momentum is gone. And everyone spends the next 3 years wondering what could have been if they'd just agreed to a reasonable deal back in October. That's the trajectory we're on. Unless something dramatic changes in the next few days, the WNBA is about to waste the best opportunity it's ever had. And the player who created that opportunity will be the one who suffers most, watching everyone else fight over money she generated while her prime years tick away. What do you think happens on January 9th? Does someone blink, or are we headed for a full lockout? Drop your prediction in the comments. And if you think the players are right to hold out for maximum revenue sharing, explain how that works when the league loses $700 million. I'll like and subscribe for more WNBA coverage, because whether there's a season or not, will be here breaking down what happens next.